Churches are likely to have more women in the pews than men. What is keeping the men away from the church? Let's talk about the elephant in the room. What men face today as Christians.
Welcome to another episode of The Big E, the Elephant in the Room. My name is Melissa, and today we will be discussing what men face today as Christians. This is a very compelling and very important conversation for us to have, especially in our world today. There are so many men that are just such an absent community in our churches, and we felt it was very important to find out why. What is going on? What's going on in their lifestyle? What's going on in their personal lives that are actually possibly pulling them away from the church? Was it a member? Was it a family member? What is going on in their spiritual walk? So we just thought it was important at the Big E to really discuss this. So we have some great panel guests to have this wonderful conversation. We have Jefferson Jones. We have Lorenzo Smith and Chaplain Andre Paul. Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of this wonderful conversation.
Great.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I'm just going to just jump right into this, and whoever wants to take this first, what is going on in our churches today? What do you feel is the absence of our men in our churches today? What's compelling them to just basically stay away from the church or not really feel that that's their safe haven anymore?
I mean, I feel like I can add a little something to that point. I feel like men, especially in our community, about action. And what first comes to mind is Martin Luther King, and who we respected so much. He was about that action. And a lot of things are happening in our community, in our communities, that require action, and the church is taking a back seat in a lot of ways. And that's just one aspect that I feel like men are about spying. Men are about courage, standing up. We respect that. Even if we don't have it at the time, we respect people who exhibit that. And I feel like the church is for the most part, there's a few, but for the most part, it's taking a back seat in a lot of issues that affect us on a major level in the communities. And, from racial issues to, joblessness, a number of different things that, has men out here looking bad, just the community in general looking bad. And when our men look bad, it impacts the kids, the children and the mothers, the wives, everything that connects to that.
Mm-hmm. Do you all gentlemen have some insight, Jefferson or Chaplain Andre?
Absolutely. And add on to that, just the absence of men in society.
Yeah, I just began to think about men having a safe space to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
A safe space where they don't have to have it all together. A safe space where we as men don't have to measure up to the idea of what one leader or some leaders or denomination or group of people believe that man should be. Men, it's okay to not be okay. And we learn growing up in the home, boy, don't cry. Mm-hmm. Suck it up. Get through it. And what that does is it trains us to have this mentality where tears or showing certain emotions is weakness. But in reality, as we're created in the image of God, expressing emotion, it is a part of God's design of man.
And it's so true about that whole thing. Men don't cry. I know growing up, my dad always said, don't be ashamed whenever you grow up and get married. If your husband cries, if your child cries, if your son cries, don't talk down to them. Don't belittle them. They have feelings too. They're human. It's okay to cry. It's okay to show emotions and feelings. And I think we're supposed to be like that. Back in the day, Shearer and here, oh, don't cry, strong man, and my dad used to always say, like the Hercules and the, don't cry, stay strong. If you cry, you're a weak man. Doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're weak, but we have placed that in our minds, and we have basically programmed from years ago, to just say, you know what? If you cry, that means you're a weak man. So I thank you for bringing that input, because that's so profound, and men have to understand crying does not show weakness. It does not show weakness.
It's actually power in tears. That's just brought me. I have a book that's an editing process, and one of the parts of it is called The Power of Tears. I'm not going to go into all that right now, but I just know I didn't cry from like 12 years old to like a really grown man. And when y'all seen on tsunamis and all that and everything, that was me crying and letting it all go. Crying is a natural emotion, just like laughing, just like anything. So when you bottle all that up, what happens is that you have an unbalanced homeostasis. And if your homeostasis is unbalanced, this is why people burst and act out murder and do things like that, because they don't have those emotions balanced.
So do you think women provide enough support to men today when it comes to, what they're facing? Do you feel that the men are getting the proper support, or do you think the women are more kind of in that empowerment, I'm doing me, and I'm focusing on me? What is your insight on that, on the side of, what's your insight? Because I feel that, a lot of women, they're all about focusing on themselves, because they get caught up in taking care of their families and doing what they have to do. And sometimes women neglect that the man needs to be tending to. They need that support system. So what is your thoughts process on that?
My thought process on that, I said, let me jump in, because I know I know who's going to fight to jump in on that one. But actually, I'm going to be honest with you. That I would have to say that's on a person-to-person, situation-to-situation basis. I know situations where women are very supportive. I know I have support from women really well myself. There are those situations that the women are not supportive. And a lot of times those situations flow over into my backyard or my front yard, because the brothers that's not getting the support, they come amongst me because the support is definitely on my end.
Lorenzo, you were going to say something?
Well, I feel that I love my women. I love, the women in the community, especially, Black women representing in a lot of ways. But I'm very disappointed because I feel like they've gotten the one up because community is the wind is at their backs. They're on a pedestal at this point. They're overachievers, but they seem to be much more content with that than supporting the men in their communities at this time. And it shows, because we wouldn't be on opposite ends. If any one of us gets leverage or gets an advantage, we're supposed to lift each other up, represent each other. And I feel like we should, and the women should take a lot more pride in that. We represent each other as a one community. No one person. We're just as strong as the weakest member in our community. That's how I look at that. And definitely be more supportive. Society looks at us as Black men as a threat, and so there's a lot more focus against us institutionally. So they think that they're playing. It's a competition between us. We're on the same team. That's what they need to understand, and we need to speak about that in any one of our religious institutions. On that level, we need to put that out front to get people back, going the same direction or moving on the same accord.
Jefferson, you have some insight on that?
Yeah, this is really good, and this question is one that has so many layers, so many components to it. And my first thought went immediately to family, And I even think about, biblically, when you look in Genesis, God couldn't get past the first 4 people before the dysfunction crept in. He couldn't get past the first 2. And so I think in every family, there is dysfunction, Black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, however you want to chop it up.
Mhm.
But specifically in the Black community, I think about systemic issues that we have had to face that have been passed down over the years. Think about the separation of husbands and wives and children and their families, and the abuse that took place through that process, and just how women had to, at least in the Black community, they had to be stronger. They had to be more stable. They had to be fighters. And I really think it starts with us being able to have more conversations like this. But then going back to what Chaplain said, each case is different. Each person is different. And we have to be willing to come to the table. And for those who want to have the conversation, the ones who want to develop community, develop family, develop healthier relationships, then those are the ones that we spend the time, investing in. And so, I'm surrounded by women who are encouraging, uplifting, empowering. That's my narrative. I've always been around, women like that. I taught middle school 6 years, high school 2 years, and I know what it's like to be exposed to Black women that aren't like that because of my students, and I could see it. But so I was a presence that was needed for those kids. And so, it's just a lot to this. I'll stop right there.
So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back.
We know that God has called you to a mission, but sometimes you need a little help getting there. At the Center for Clergy and Church Support, we strive to encourage, empower, and equip ministries and nonprofit organizations to do all that God has called them to do. We handle basic legal issues, conduct administrative and financial audits, and strengthen organizations in community engagement and capacity building. Let us help your ministry or nonprofit in advancing the kingdom of God. Visit clergycenter.org for more information.
Thank you again for tuning in and watching The Big E, the elephant in the room. Today we have a great topic talking about what men face today as Christians. Men actually, they have so many vices against them. You have the racial disparities going on. You have these, women that are, women want to be, the leaders that want to be the leaders of the home instead of allowing the man to be the head of the household, because, then you have so many vices when it comes to this issue. And I think that's why so many men, honestly, they feel broken. They don't feel needed. They feel like they don't want to, what do you want me to do? Because no matter what, it's not good enough. Or, you have all of those conversations, like you said, the women come together, then you have the men that, okay, we're going into the question of, you have all of this other vices that are going on with, the uncertainty, look of the not even just the racial disparities, just the work environment that you're dealing with, the being accepted, our, promotions. It's so much. And not saying women are not dealing with the same thing, but I think men per se sometimes have more, because you think about it. I know how my dad was like, I'm the head of the household, so I'm expected to do A, B, and C. So y'all have more to follow through. And then when you don't feel, so if she doesn't accept me because I don't do that, I'm basically feeling helpless. So I don't know if that, is something that is probably some of the reason why there's so much going on, and, men don't stick together because, it's a very unfortunate situation, especially in our Black community, because we're even fighting against our own selves. That's another story. Now, if y'all want to go into that, we can go into that too, because we are fighting against our own selves too.
Because the art of war is in effect, divide and conquer,
Yes.
And let's look at it. Let's look at it in our community. First of all, let me go back to the church for 1 second.
No.
The church is actually so confined in the church within itself that it's not out in the communities doing the things that's supposed to be doing in the communities. And I look at churches, and all churches basically start at 11 o'clock on Sundays. Then we got McDonald's and we got Burger King in competition every Sunday because everybody trying to get the most members. Everybody trying to get, so, so it's a division there, just period there. Then if you look at it, let's just say, why don't all the churches do something collectively one time a year together? If it's going to be the way it is, where each church, the best thing that happened through this pandemic is that you was able to visit different churches virtually. And you wasn't just in a position where you was going to your physical local church home all the time, and just put me back on track, because I went to the church and I got really passionate about that part. Get me back to where we was at so I can finish that part.
We were talking specifically about how we're
the division.
divided against each other,
Division,
right?
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The division. So the men being divided, let's look at every maybe decade, a new drug coming to our communities. Okay, so let's go back to heroin. Okay, heroin, when a heroin addict did heroin, they still was able to hold their family down, because it didn't take much for them to get high, and they was able to hold a job and do whatever it took. They was able to spend time with the family. Then they put the crack in the neighborhoods in the next decade, and that was a different story, because a crackhead was not standing still long enough. So the family got broken down there, and in those 80s, what happened is that those 80s birthed a lot of kids, and not, I say a lot, and I actually, I take part of being a Black man in society, so I speak for we, even though I know a large majority of people that don't fit into this. That's Black people. That's our people. But just those drugs being put into our, in every decade, it's a new one. It might be, sometimes it's shorter than a decade now.
Right.
But those things right there have really destructed our communities, and that's one of the main things that divide and conquer. Another thing is public assistance, because public assistance make our people lazy. Our people are entrepreneurs by nature, right? But what poverty does is make them do it the wrong way and not the right way. So they go hustling. I know that, and I can say that because I've been in past life. We'll be here all day. We talk about that, right? But to be able to see that you give a brother another chance, you give a sister another chance to do it the right way. And when you take something from somebody, you give them something that's tangible and something they can work towards, I'm saying, for the void from what you took. And I know giving people another chance has worked, but it's so bad because people follow what they see on TV. Look what they did to our music industry. So the rap industry, when you go back to rap, the rap music was all positive rap. And when it got commercialized, it talked about the jewelry and the furs and the women and this and that. And our children are watching this. I know how powerful the music industry is, the film music industry, because the night before Obama won the election, it was I forgot what awards it was, but at the end they said, vote Obama, vote Obama. You know how many of our people went out and voted because our people got touched through film and music. Film and music is a serious avenue to get to our people. So
and you're right, the music industry, but I always go back, if drugs came, and I'm gonna end this with a last little segment here. Drugs came in our community because we allowed it to come in. If we collectively worked together, we wouldn't have the various disparities that we have. But I just feel like it could be stopped, but we need to unite together. But we're so much fighting against, like we always say, crabs in the barrel. We're always trying to, well, it's all about me. It's all about me, instead of, hey, how collectively as a community can we work together? Not just with the men, but the women. Everyone have vices, but if we collectively, we all are smart and talented. God has given us all these gifts and abilities to be able to build, and we can build our own community, build our own companies, our entrepreneur. We can do it, but we are so jealous amongst each other. And I think that is the biggest piece we're getting. So I have one last point I want to just bring across to you, gentlemen. What would you say to the younger generation today regarding staying grounded as Christians? Because of you have the social media, you have all of the distractions, sometimes to even lure individuals away from the church. Like you said, the music, just so much. So what would you do? What would you say to a younger generation that are up and coming, and say, how would you want them to, or what would you tell them to stay grounded as Christians?
I mean, I'll thinking, one of the things that I've heard, I love the fact that you brought up the younger generation, because, some of my mentors always say it's greater to, or it's better to raise grounded and strong children than to direct your attention to repairing broken men and women, for that matter. But and they're gonna have to take this baton. But at the same time, I would say to them that there's nothing like reaching toward, nobody's perfect, but reaching towards your faith, and also striving to lead righteous living and everything like that, because it rewards you in life. And I believe what you put out there comes back to you. And I feel like the church has to prove itself, because it's basically defunct. They're sitting on the sideline, on the bench on a lot of these issues. You guys brought up business. That's one of the things that we, all of these sister churches could get together and make a dent in some of these communities in those areas. I don't know why it hasn't. And we gotta sit down and have a serious conversation, because it's like our institutions are conspiring against us on something. And whether the kids know how to intellectualize that or not, they feel it and they see it. When somebody's not doing something with, and they are doing something, sometimes even when they're not doing something and they're not saying something, that speaks loudly, and many things are whether or not, you can see some of the younger generation, they may not speak it and express it. However, they feel it, like I was saying before. And I'll leave it, to the other brothers to fill in.
So do you have, we are kind of over our mark, but we definitely want to get your last point of view. Jefferson, do you have any viewpoints that you would like to maybe share to the young people to stay grounded as Christians?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say is the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The younger generations are byproducts of the former generations. And so I love young adults. I love the younger generations. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not scared. I'm here for all the smoke. Let's go. And so I want to leave a verse, 1 Timothy 4:12. It says, "Don't let anyone think less of you because you are young. Be an example to all believers in what you say and the way you live, and your love, your faith, and your purity." Look, you got a whole lot of older Christians who have just repeated kindergarten for 20 years as a believer. And there are a lot of young Christians out here who are sharper, wiser, just as anointed as some of these 60 and 50-year-old Christians running around leading stuff. And so I would say to the younger generations, don't sit on your gifting. find mentors and leaders for you to use your gifts,
Mm-hmm.
and find me.
Yes.
Well,
I thank you
So yeah,
for
I just want to encourage them, man, because the younger generations, they're not, there's no junior Holy Spirit. They have the same Holy Spirit that any other adult has. They have the same giftings. They have the same abilities. And I just think we need to spend more time pouring into them, giving them the safe spaces that they need to grow and develop. And so younger generations, you're valuable. You have great worth. You are needed. You are needed in the church. The church needs you. Find somewhere to get rooted and get planted and get connected to healthy, emotionally healthy believers who have strong kingdom character. All right, I'm quiet.
Amen.
Well, I think.
You want me to do mine, or you want to?
Okay, one last segment. Yes, 1 minute. You got one minute.
So the Proverbs on 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they old, they will not deter from it." So that's saying that goes everything that they said. I was going to say, so I don't have to say it. That's just, I'm going to bottom line it that it starts at home. But if we identify that something's going on at home, we have a responsibility as a Christian to go to that home and see what we can do. But listening to the young adults listening, if you having problems at home, you find a mentor, coach, and you be coachable, teachable, and trainable. And honestly, this platform is called The Elephant in the Room. And actually, let's look at the word community. If you take the COMM out, what do you have? Unity. That's the elephant in the room.
Well, I thank you so much, gentlemen, for this conversation to really dive in and talk about these issues. I would love to have you gentlemen come back because I feel like we're just touching the surface. I mean, we really haven't really dived into what really the men and even the younger generation really needs to hear. So with that being said, I just thank you gentlemen again for being part of this platform, the Big E, the elephant in the room. And like we always say, thank you. We appreciate you for watching. Because the Big E, the elephant in the room, where we speak about the unspeakable.
God bless.
All love.
God bless.
Bless.